All right, Ethan, I'm busy reading The Courage to be Disliked, and I'm going to butcher the authors' names, but it's Ikiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga. And I'm loving the book so far. The way it's written is great. It's a conversation between a youth and a philosopher, and the conversation flows, and it really helps me as the reader understand some of these concepts that they're talking through. And it's about the difference between Freudian psychology and Adlerian psychology. And this extract that I'm going to share with you quickly explains the premise of it. No experience is in itself a cause of our success or failure. We do not suffer from the shock of our experiences, the so-called trauma, but instead we make out of them whatever suits our purposes. We are not determined by our experiences, but the meaning we give them is self-determining. So really, in a nutshell, what it's all about and what it's saying is that the trauma itself is not the thing that creates how we feel right now or that creates our current reality. I'm using the word trauma, but instead, Adlerian psychology speaks about the fact the meaning that we assign to that experience that we had is what is now creating our existing or our current state. And there's something to that. Again, it's the idea of what happened to us is maybe out of your control, but the way that you choose to show up from here on out is in your control, and that is up to you.
Welcome to King Moves. In chess, the king moves one step at a time, but that single move can change everything. Each week, we explore mindset shifts and simple actions that could lead to the next breakthrough in your business and life. I'm your co-host, Ethan King, from Atlanta, Georgia, USA. Entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, and best-selling author of Wealth Beyond Money.
And I'm your co-host, Justin King, no relation to Ethan, from Cape Town, South Africa. Entrepreneur, speaker, and business growth strategist. Our journey crosses continents and cultures as we think out loud, challenge assumptions, and uncover the small moves that create big momentum. Welcome to King Moves. Let's start the conversation. And they go further to say that we've got some hidden, almost like a hidden agenda, I'm going to call it, a hidden agenda from ourselves that it's easy to deny, but every decision that we make is actually reinforcing that agenda. It's the idea that you say that you've got an overbearing, terrible boss who always tells you that your work is not good enough. So they have never been able to, they've never promoted you to the next level. Whereas what is often happening is there's part of you that doesn't believe and trust in yourself that you are able to step up to that next level. So you start creating this overbearing boss who always belittles you and tells you you're not good enough, because then you never have to step into that new role or take on that next challenge, as an example. So, and I probably haven't explained that really well. They do it in the book really well. But it's this hidden agenda that we're keeping ourselves safe from something, or we're creating this difficulty in our lives for some reason. It's been such an interesting read, but I think that the conversation that I'd love to have with you is, what is your take on the idea of past events? They impact us. Is that what drives and determines what we are now? Or do you agree that it's this meaning that we give to that event that can be the catalyst for what our current state is?
Yeah, I 100% agree that there are no events. There's only the meaning we assign to the events. Nothing in itself is inherently good or bad. A tornado is a weather event. Now, is it good or is it bad? Well, it depends. It depends on the meaning that you assign to it. It might destroy your entire home and you lose everything. Is that good or bad? For some people, depending on where your headspace is, they might be like, oh, that's great. I get to restart. I hated this house anyway. I wanted to remodel everything. Now I get to do it and insurance pays for it, But to some people, it may be a devastating loss. So I don't want to make light of it. But it is about the meaning that we assign to it. And I think about my life and the story that I share often. Probably the most impactful moment that ever happened to me in my life is when I did get robbed at gunpoint. I got carjacked. But at the time, what I was going through mentally is I was working at this strip club, taking out the trash, hated the job. I felt stuck in life. I felt like there was something greater for me on the other side if I left that lifestyle and actually got a real job instead of started using my talents for good. But I hesitated to do it. So when I got carjacked that night, I saw that as a sign from God. Like, this is a wake up call, like boom. And I went after that moment, like I never went back to that old job ever again. And so that was a huge turning point for me in my life. And it was that mental jolt that I needed. No, I didn't have to assign meaning to that. I could have been like, oh well, I got robbed. People get robbed. Back to work, I could have kept doing the same thing and stayed in that lifestyle. But it's because of the meaning I assigned to it. That's what changed the trajectory of my life in a positive direction for me. Now, with that, I already had going into the situation gut feeling and intuition about my life, and that event was the catalyst for me mentally. So I think that's a part of it that I think we need in order to assign the meaning. We already need to be going into a situation with a gut feel, and then we see whatever happens as a sign from the universe that I'm on the right path or I'm on the wrong path.
So you've really changed my outlook on the assigning of the a meaning, because I was just thinking to myself, a lot of people will assign a negative meaning to it, and that's how they. But yeah, we can assign a positive meaning, because in my mind, I was either we assign a negative meaning, or we kind of just indifferent about it, and then we carry on with our lives as like, maybe that's Justin sweeping things under the carpet again. So thank you for calling me out on that. But I like the idea of assigning a positive meaning. And if I have to think about it as well, one of the big catalysts in my life for making real change was getting divorced, which was 3.5, 4 years ago. And if I think about the meaning that I've assigned to that, it was positive meaning. It was the tracker on the side of the head that I needed to make a few changes and start asking some questions and leaning into some growth on my side, and not waiting for everybody else to do it. So I've assigned that meaning to that particular trauma, that event. Whereas for a brief moment, though, I didn't. And I'll be honest, and this is why I can see the difference. For brief moments, I was I assigned a different kind of meaning to it. I assigned a depressed meaning. This is defining me. What a failure. That was the first 6 months of it. But after that, I managed to make that switch, and it made all the difference to what I'm stepping into, leaning into, the trajectory that my life is on, what my work is on. Huge difference. Massive.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what life is all about. I mean, think about it. We're both public speakers. Why are you a public speaker? Without even knowing your public speaker origin story, I'm sure that at some point in life, you built up the courage to speak in front of an audience, and you got a positive response from it. It may have been a standing ovation, or people afterward came up to you and told you about the positive impact that your words had on them. But there was some type of positive response that made you think, well, I should keep doing more of this. And that's what it was for me, and that's what it is for most speakers. But we assign meaning to that. It could be that you built up the nerves to speak in front of a crowd, and even if you got a standing ovation, you might be like, oh my God, I'm never doing that again. That was brutal. I never, ever want to speak on stage again. So it's all about the meaning that we assign, and then the action that we decide to take because of the meaning that we assign to the event, positive or negative. Am I right in that story? Is that part of your origin story? Your speaker origin story?
Yeah, absolutely. My speaking in front of audiences started when I was still at school. So it was something that I had to do as part of the role, part of my duties that I had in senior school. So, and I've got some fond memories of how that was received at the time. And I've always had an image. It's weird, Ethan. I've always had an image in my head of me standing up in front of and it changes, but a vision of success, me standing up in front of a group of people, whether it was in a boardroom or whether it was on stage, that changes, and it's a bit blurry, but that's always been there. Even when I've been trying to figure out what is my career doing, what direction is it taking, that's one of the things that's always kind of been there. And yeah, I think it comes from quite early on. As you say, it gets reinforced by the meaning that we give to it, but also we kind of get trained based on that positive reception that we give it, or we aren't. So that can be a double-edged sword in itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's either could be a catalyst because I got booed off the stage to be like, right, that's never going to happen again, and I'm now going to become the best speaker in the world so that I've never experienced it again. Becomes, oh man, that's exactly what I am. I'm a really rubbish speaker. Thank you for letting me know, and I never speak in front of people again.
Yeah, it could go either way. Yeah. In fact, Les Brown was telling me about a story that was a catalyst moment in his speaking career where he was invited to speak among this conference, if you will. And at the time in America, it was very, very racist. He was the only black speaker. He was given 15 minutes to speak. Everyone else was given 45 minutes to speak. And they had to, the goal was to sell some product. And he didn't do as well as the other speakers, and they didn't invite him back to speak. And he said he went into his car and he said, I will never let this happen to me again, because he felt like he failed. And he said, I am going to be not just the best black speaker, the best motivational speaker. I am going to dominate and be the best. And that drove him to really hone in on his craft and become the best speaker. And now he's obviously among the icons, but it was that moment that he looks back on.
I love that. I really love it.
So Justin, with all of that said, my king move for our listeners would be to be aware of everything in your life that happens in the meaning that you're assigning to it, and tap into your intuition, your gut feeling. Like, we actually have brain sensors in our gut. That's why we get a gut feeling about things. And if that event that happened in your life somehow aligns with your gut feeling, and you feel like it's the universe telling you to do something, then I encourage you to take action on that thing. Maybe you need to start doing something. Maybe you need to stop doing something you were already doing, but pay attention to those waves.
Yeah, I love it. For me, a simple king move is lean into the power of the reframe. We so often assign these meanings or a meaning to something that we've experienced. First of all, is that experience or is that meaning that you've assigned serving you? And if not, how can you reframe it so that it does? Lean into that. It's going to feel uncomfortable to start, but I think you will find that it's a catalyst for good going forward.
100%. And we'll be back with part 2 of this episode, where we're talking about the courage to be disliked. And very fascinating point that you brought up, Justin, that all problems are interpersonal relationship problems. So we'll explore that a bit deeper on the next episode. That's a wrap for today's episode of King Moves. Remember, in chess, like in business, one right move can change everything. Take today's action step, make your move, and build momentum.
If you found value in today's episode, share it with someone who's ready for their next breakthrough, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our weekly conversations. Until next time.